as we keep unraveling the curious and baffling laws of 18th century France. Let's move to a regulation that's both charming and utterly bizarre: the law regarding animals after dark. Now, you might be thinking, what in the world would prompt a law about animals roaming at night? Well, here's the twist. Certain French cities actually had laws that prohibited animals from being outside after dark. Yes, that's right. Pets, livestock, even the occasional horse. None were allowed to roam freely once the sun set. Historians still argue whether this was just a practical matter of public safety or if it had deeper social implications. Regardless of the reasoning, this was a law that you really didn't want to ignore. After hours, the streets of France were no place for a wandering cow or a stray dog. The reasoning behind it might seem simple. Animals could cause chaos in the streets during the night, damage property, or even get into the kind of trouble that could ruin someone's evening. But the law itself was part of a greater trend in France during the 18th century, one where controlling every detail of life, no matter how small, was paramount. Now, imagine this scene. You've just spent a long day working on the farm, and as the sun begins to set, you're eager to head home, relax, and enjoy a peaceful evening with your family. But as you approach the edge of town, you hear a commotion. Somewhere in the distance, a sheep is bleating, and you can just make out the silhouette of a cow slowly meandering its way down the street. You think nothing of it at first. After all, animals roam freely in the countryside all the time. But wait, then you hear a bell. The sound is unmistakable. The town's night patrol, here to ensure that the law is upheld, and those animals are swiftly herded back where they belong. Imagine being the unlucky soul responsible for that wandering livestock. A fine would be coming your way for sure. You might be wondering, why such a strange law? Well, it wasn't just about animals getting into trouble. France, during this period, was a place of evolving societal norms, and many of these laws stem from a desire to regulate even the smallest aspects of life. The monarchy, who is often paranoid about maintaining order, had no patience for the chaos that could result from animals roaming in public spaces. Imagine the havoc a runaway horse could cause on cobblestone streets in the middle of the night, or a group of mischievous pigs snuffling around the marketplaces, trampling over goods left in the open. The animals, though innocent in their intentions, were seen as a potential threat to the careful and controlled society that the aristocracy worked so hard to maintain. But here's where things get interesting. The law didn't just apply to farm animals. It extended to household pets too. Yes, that little dog you've lovingly cared for all day. No nighttime walks for him. Even the beloved cats that prowled the streets of Paris were subject to curfew. And while we might assume that people simply ignored this law, who would notice a cat after dark? It was taken quite seriously. In fact, in some towns, you could be fined for letting your pet wander freely once nightfall hit. Imagine the confusion for a dog who was used to its owner's evening strolls, only to find that the law prohibited such liberties. How long did it take for people to accept that their furry companions could no longer accompany them on those late-night ventures? Historians still debate the rationale behind these laws, and some suggest that there was more to it than just the fear of chaos. For one, these curfews may have been a way to ensure that the streets stayed empty after hours, allowing for the full control of law enforcement to monitor any disturbances. And perhaps there was a subtle layer of classism to it. Such curfews were often enforced more strictly in urban areas, where animals weren't as domesticated and were more likely to cause trouble. In rural areas, animals roamed freely with less concern, and the curfew didn't have the same impact. But in the cities, particularly Paris, these laws served as another reminder that everything, right down to your animal's habits, was subject to authority. The funny thing is, there's something almost endearing about these laws when we look at them from a modern perspective. Imagine how strange it must have seemed to a pet owner who suddenly found that their dog or cat could no longer wander the streets at night. In today's world, we associate animals with freedom, even if it's just a little walk around the block under the glow of streetlights. But in 18th century France, the idea of allowing animals to roam freely was far from acceptable. It was a breach of the carefully crafted order that the monarchy was trying to preserve. You didn't have the luxury of letting your dog roam the streets, and certainly not your chickens or goats. And then, of course, there's the very human aspect of it. Pets, like dogs and cats, have been part of our lives for centuries, often providing comfort and companionship in ways that transcend time and place. To imagine a law that kept them indoors like some kind of pet prison sentence seems strange to us today. But that was the reality in France back then. Whether it was a public safety measure, a way to maintain control, or simply an attempt to keep the streets orderly at night, this animal curfew law was just one more layer of complexity in the intricate fabric of 18th century French society. Why now? You might be wondering if any of these bizarre laws actually worked. Did the animals really stay indoors? Or did the townsfolk just sneak them out for late-night strolls? Well, we'll never really know. But one thing's for sure. Life in 18th century France wasn't as simple as it looked. Even your pet's midnight activities were subject to strict legal scrutiny. A little absurd, right? But it gives us a glimpse into how tightly controlled every aspect of society was, and how even the most innocent of acts, like letting your dog out for a late-night run, could become a legal offense.